How smart is it locking away your money from the age of 20 until you are 60 for 4 decades, losing to inflation? I'm going to show you what I actually do to create better wealth faster. For all the boomers that can't afford to retire and all of you that have a retirement account and you think it's a good idea, it's not. Here's why. So today we're going to go over Roth IRAs, we're going to go through traditional, we're going to go through 401ks. Now, of course, every financial advisor in the world that's managing your assets thinks this is a good idea. We've been taught to believe that getting a 7% historical return in an account that we cannot touch for 40 years, losing 2.65% on average to inflation is a good idea. You have no leverage, and then the SEC takes a 10% cut when you try to withdraw or get access to it before 59.5. And in some cases, you were actually told that you got to start paying yourself so the IRS can collect more tax money off of you. I don't get it. So in this video, we're going to explain some alternatives to retirement accounts. We're going to completely debunk them. And if you are trying to retire early, you're trying to figure out other options in your retirement, or if you're in your working years and you're going, how do I retire early? What are good investment accounts? Is a Roth IRA a good idea? Is a 401k a good idea? Is a traditional IRA a good idea? We're going to get into the math right now. So now if you're making $100,000 a year and they're saying, well, you can contribute $7,000 a year and you'll take care of the taxes now because you do not get a deduction when you contribute to a Roth IRA. Everybody thinks this is a great idea. Hey, I'm going to be able to grow. I'm paying the taxes now so I don't have to later. That's the advisor word. Pay the taxes now so you don't have to pay the taxes later. That sounds like a really good idea because you cannot touch it till you're 59.5. How smart is that? I'm going to ask you again, how smart is it locking away your money from the age of 20 until you are 60 for 4 decades, losing to inflation? It is simple math, guys. If inflation is 3% historically, and in recent years, we all know it's been higher. So if I'm losing 120% to inflation, and I historically am only growing at 7%, then by the time I've locked my money away for 40 years before I can go to collect, yes, it's tax-free, then I've lost all of the growth to inflation. Congratulations. Do you know what we call that? Smart, apparently. That's what they're calling it. They call it smart, okay? So then we look at a traditional. The difference is here, you can contribute $7,000 just like your Roth IRA, and you get a deduction on that. Congratulations. So your earned income, if you make $100,000 a year, went down to $93,000. Okay, so maybe you saved $1,000 on taxes, LOL. You're going to pay income tax when you go to withdraw. And in a second here, guys, I know I sound pessimistic, and it's because I quite frankly am, but I'm going to provide some strategies that I practice, that I actually do, not hypothetical, learn from some Gen Z person that's never owned a business or never had money, but I'm going to show you what I actually do to create better wealth faster with more leverage and less time. And before I jump into that, I skipped over something that I want to point out. If my limit is $7,000 contributing to a Roth IRA and I have to pay taxes on all my earned income here, and I'm locking the money away for 40 years so I don't pay taxes later, I would rather invest through a health savings account where I can contribute as an individual about $4,300 a year or $8,500 as a married couple filing joint, and invest my money, get the income deduction, because when you invest in an HSA, that's deductible against your earned income, and then I'm able to invest tax-free. Some of you are like, well, why would you do that if you can only contribute $4,300 a year and a Roth allows you to do $7,000? Well, because I can self-direct the HSA into assets I choose that outperform the stock market. So if my Roth is tied to the stock market and I can only do 7 to 10% or something like that, I would rather not do a Roth, I'd rather do an HSA, and I'd rather self-direct that money so I have tax-free growth through the HSA, or I self-direct the Roth and I invest in assets that outperform the market. So that is one hack, if you will, to optimize your Roth IRA. You need to learn investments like oil. You need to learn investments like real estate, which we're going to dive into in just a little bit here. And I'll show you my full strategy A to Z with oil and real estate. At least increase your odds of generating a higher return so that you're not stuck to these 7 to 10% annual returns. And again, look into the HSAs that are self-directed. We do them all the time here in the Capitalist Network, and it's because you can self-direct into assets that outgrow the market, okay? So moving on, traditional, we talked about this. If you make $100,000 a year and you contribute $7,000, which is the max for 2025, great, you lowered your taxes a little bit, you saved $1,000, but you're still gonna pay income tax when you go to collect. Your 401k is not any different. It's taxed the exact same. The only difference is the government is saying, congratulations, you can invest more into the 401k. We want you to do that. Invest as much as possible because we can tax you up your butthole when we go to collect. We can tax your anus all the way through to your mouth when we go to collect the taxes on your 401k. So they put the contribution limit much higher, $23,000 for 2025, but it's the exact same tax structure. When you go to start taking money out, you're gonna pay income taxes. So in a second here, I'm gonna give you an example, and we're gonna run a race here, okay? We're gonna take your 401k, and we're going to base it off of historical performance over the last 40 years, historical returns. We're gonna base it off historical inflation, and we're even, just to keep numbers round, we're gonna say even if you were able to contribute $10,000 a year, which you're not, so I'm trying to make this as like conservative of a scenario as possible, we're gonna base it off of that. We're gonna base it off of if you were able to contribute $10,000 a year for 40 years, we're gonna base it off of the last 40 years of inflation, which on average, if you combine all 40 years, in the previous 40 years from 2025 all the way to 1985, historical inflation is 3.2%. We're gonna base it on the fact that when you go to collect, you probably work in a job, maybe you're making 100K a year. So if you were to go collect all of that at once, you're gonna be in the 24% tax bracket. We're gonna put that all together and we're gonna partner that up against historical performance on the deals I invest in all of the time, and we're gonna see who wins, okay? Now, before I do that, if you're brand new to the channel and you want to know more about building wealth, creating leverage, lowering taxes, all of the financial sector that they don't teach in school and that your advisors are not licensed to even know, then you're gonna wanna subscribe, okay? This is what we do all the time. I drop content every single week on how to lower your taxes, how to invest in passive stuff, how to take your earned income and write it off with passive investments, which is actually something that is real, and how to create leverage with institutional grade financial products that allow you to actually build wealth. I do all this inside my community called the Capitalist Network. If you're interested in learning more about that, there's a link in the description for a 7-day free trial. I took all my wealth building partners that I use in oil, in gas, in real estate, with taxes, with institutional grade financial products, and all of this stuff here, I put it all under one roof. We provide you the strategy, the mentorship, the tools, and even the investment funds to go into. And this is not financial advice. This is just based on my own personal experience and what hundreds of our members have been able to do. This is what we do. The link is in the description. So let's take that 401. Again, if we could contribute $10,000 a year, 7% is historical growth. If we look at S&P performance, if we look at any charts, if we actually look at the data, 7% has been the average growth. We've got 3.2% inflation. We're in the 24% tax bracket. So what that means is when we go to collect, we're gonna have a value of just under $2 million. We're gonna pay $383,000 in taxes, and that means that we're gonna collect about $1,613,000. But here's the problem. Because of the loss to inflation over that 40-year period, when we go to collect, our purchase power is equivalent to $457,000. Okay, so I want you to look at something. You invested for 40 years, 10K a year. You invested $400,000. You took 4 decades to do it, and you now have the purchase power of $457,000. That is the hidden cost of inflation, lack of leverage, exposure to time, and taxes that nobody talks about. And you might want to rewind that line and play it again. But apparently, this is what they call less risky. I would argue that this less risky situation is what's causing the average baby boomer to realize they can't retire, to have to go back and get a job at 70 years old, to have $6 grand sitting in their savings account by the time they go to retire. This is the system you were taught. You were told it works, but it didn't. So here's the strategy that I use, okay? And if you're loving this so far, smash that like button. I know I'm brash. I know I'm not politically correct, but at least I'll tell you the truth, okay? We're gonna pair this up against the strategy that I use. We're gonna take 100 grand and we're gonna invest in assets that I know and understand. Here's a common thing that everybody needs to know. Understand the assets you invest in. Everybody just assumes a financial advisor has got their best interest in mind. Oh, I'll go invest in the stock market or index funds or ETFs or crypto because that's what everybody's doing. But they don't take the time to understand the asset they're investing in, okay? This building, which is a 16,000 square foot commercial building, has different cash flow in another market compared to where I am, okay? The apartment complex that is in Kansas City, that is the exact same complex, exact same floor plan as one in San Diego. It's gonna cash flow differently. Different tenant, different type of laws, different things that protect landlords versus tenants, different taxes, different city planning, different codes in construction, all these different things. So when you're going to make a decision with your money, know who to partner with, know how to evaluate what a good asset is versus a bad asset. So I'm gonna give you an example here. We put $100,000 in. I'm gonna go and do real estate, okay? And I'm basing this, much like I based this off of the last 40 years of inflation, inflation, the average growth of a 401k. I'm gonna take the same inflation. I'm gonna take the tax treatment of investing in real estate, which is capital gains, and I'm gonna take the highest rate of capital gains, which is the least likely scenario, but again, I wanna make this conservative. So we're gonna assume a 20% capital gain tax. We're gonna take 100K and we're gonna cycle it into deals based on historical performance. Deals I've invested in, deals that I do with the fund I'm partnered with, these are the type of deals. And I'm going to set that up and take 100K and go into real estate deal one. And based on historical performance, I'm gonna go into another, and I'm gonna go into another, and I'm gonna go into another. So if we take 100,000, all right, and we're gonna go into an asset that has an internal rate of return of 14.4%. And excuse me, a 14.4% IRR would be what you would need to double your money every 5 years. This real estate deal is actually a 19.1% IRR, which is actually a 2.37x return over a 5-year period of time. So 19.1% IRR, not 14.4. So to double our money in a 5-year period of time would take a 14.4% annual return. Now, I'm basing this off of realism. We have a deal right now that's a 2.37x projected multiple on invested capital over a 5-year period of time. So that means 100K invested now is worth 237,000 5 years from now. So that's more than double. So I'm taking a conservative scenario and the max amount of taxes that I could pay, and I'm putting it in this. And we're gonna insert the same equation on inflation, all right, and the same period of time. So 14.4, we double that. And here's what ends up happening is after 5 years, this is 200. That 200 becomes 400. That 400 becomes 800. And we're gonna go through 8 cycles of that, 40 years. 8 times 5 is 40 years. And so here's what that ends up mathematically adding up to. And again, this is based on realism. Historical deals, historical inflation, same period of time, this rate of return here, this tax treatment, which is just real, and the max tax treatment I can have investing in real estate this way. Here's the numbers that we end up getting. We end up with a $25 million value. Isn't that crazy? A $25 million nominal value. This is nominal value here. This is nominal value here, okay? We are going to pay $5.1 million in taxes if we don't depreciate, if we don't do anything else. We're going to have a this is 25.6 million, okay? We're going to have a 20.5 million after-tax value, okay? This was our after-tax value going the retirement route that you guys have all been told is good. This is our after-tax value going this route based on historical performance in markets that we understand. Not every market can perform this way. Not every market will. Not every real estate deal works out that way. I have taken several based on historical performance in a market that we understand, that we've done this in time and time again. 20.5 ATV. When we adjust for inflation, we have $5.8 million. So I will ask you again, which one is less risk? Not having shit when you retire or having a lot of shit when you retire, okay? If you guys want to learn more about this and join TCN, the link is in the description. I'd love to know from you guys, what did you enjoy most about this video? Let me know in the comments. I reply to every single one, and I'll see you guys next time.